Season 1, Episode 8, Know Your Truth.
Welcome to Starting Now, a Barry podcast, presented by Cinemasins.
Hello, everybody. It's Starting Now, the Barry podcast, with Chris Atkinson, Barrett Scher, and Mike Hester.
Hey, everybody.
This is the season finale,
Mm-hmm.
and man, oh man, is it packed with stuff.
It is packed with stuff.
Ton.
We're still running around like 30 to 38 minutes or so on these episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the show.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
it's
they're
38
all
for
about
this
that.
one.
It's amazing how much they cram into that. I mean, because you watch hour-long dramas, you watch Game of Thrones and things like that, they'll have like a little bit of like filler, at least in previous seasons. This has no filler. Like everything is for a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Every facial expression is for a person. When they do the editing, you just see the way they change, and every cut and all is fitting in as much emotion and plot as they possibly can.
Mhm.
So
But, this one does start off with Barry going into Fuches' apartment and saying, I'm done with this. He's taking the money out and everything. Fuches reminds him that half of that money is his. And Barry punches him. And then he says, you can't punch me. And then he punches him again. And this
gets his tooth a little loose.
Yeah, gets his tooth a little loose. And so then this is where the title of this podcast comes from.
Yep.
He says that he's done with everything now, and it's starting now.
Mm-hmm.
And he will say this 3 times in the episode.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, starting now. Now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you really see Fuches as punching bag. It's just, he's been that a lot in this show. It's just someone who just gets beat up constantly for very humorous effect.
But he's a cockroach.
And I enjoy it.
He's of course, I do too, because I don't like the character.
I don't like him at all.
He's a cockroach, though. Like he will find a way to emerge from this. I mean,
Yes.
even when he thinks that Barry's gone and he's passed out in his easy chair and everything, I've got a fucking gun. Like he's going to get out of this some way. He's going to talk Barry out of this some way. Even by the time they get to the airport, he thinks he's going to talk him out of it.
Yeah.
And I think he still believes that he is, because he ends up, taking that next step.
This is the massive delusionary journey for him. Man.
Yeah.
Like everything. He thinks that he can just drop Fuches off at an airport and it's done. The whole I think from the airport, this is where he goes to Goron's garage at this point. He feels like he can talk to Goron. Goron, by the way, is on a treadmill smoking a cigar.
It's so fucking great. By the way,
It's a
before
huge gut.
I don't want to interrupt because we're going to get back to that point, but it's an interesting mirror when Fuches shows up and Hank opens the door. It's the same exact journey as Barry took in the middle.
Yes.
Do you want beer? Do you want
Submarine sandwich.
The difference is when Barry came in and he looked in the living room, it's a bunch of kids sitting there watching a Disney show or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's a bunch of dudes with fucking AK-47s. And it's interesting, that whole juxtaposition of that same journey with the same person. I love it. But then it leads to, I think that's one of the most indelible images, for whatever reason. Him smoking that fucking cigar nonchalantly and on a treadmill is like, what the fuck, man?
It's so funny, man.
And when he gets mad, he speeds up.
Yeah. Fuches comes in and thinks that he can sort of save his own life by telling him where Barry is. Barry's the one who messed this up, so but unfortunately, he doesn't have that card to play because they know Barry's at the acting class.
Yeah, okay. And this is the last time I'll mention it. I think that is what really tipped the scales for me on why I think Fuches has less of a personal relationship with Barry.
You stole my point. I was going to exactly say that. Yeah.
He just, without any, really...
just totally sold him out.
Totally sold him out.
First chance that he could. He does.
But let's not forget, though, he is out for himself more than he is out for Barry, for sure. but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have affection for Barry.
Oh,
I agree.
He has affection for him. Yeah,
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's tilted that highly.
But self-preservation and keeping his little evil empire going is more important than Barry staying alive, basically. So, yeah, and that's a theme that that keeps coming back in later episodes. So.
Yeah. So in typical inept Chechen fashion, Goran gets the twin brother Vasha.
Did you get landfill from Beer Fest?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I thought about that. But
call me landfill.
You could get. You know what? It'd be good if you guys could call me landfill. It'll be like he never left. This guy is named Ruslan, and they keep saying that all the way through. It's Ruslan. And Fuchs actually does think it's the guy who filed his teeth down in the earlier episode and everything. And he's like, no, this is twin brother. So the show makes you are led to believe that he's going to get all of his body parts sawed off. And so they leave him to do that. And there's that funny exchange again where they're talking about like, be sure to cut it into like different pieces because you don't want to lug around a 50-pound torso.
That's a back problem waiting to happen.
It's a back problem, of course. NoHo Hank in there. And then NoHo Hank comes out and calls Barry and says,
"Well, the right before that is pretty important. Is that Goran is going to go out to the acting class, right, to find him, and says Hank can't come.
Yep.
So
emasculates him.
Yeah, totally does, and so he goes out and he calls Barry.
Says something to the effect of like, you're just too nice. You tell them, do you want submarine sandwich and all this. I'm just trying to be nice.
Yes.
But yes, NoHo Hank calls Barry and tells him, well, you probably won't see Fuchs again. But
Barry's there sitting on the beach and he says, you probably should fly like Bugs Bunny in Space Jam.
yeah. like the song Seal does in Space Jam or whatever.
Fly like an eagle.
Yeah. And so this leads to probably the biggest Deus Ex Machina moment in the season, at least, if not the series. But because Ruslan isn't actually torturing and killing, killing Fuchs in the garage, Goran and his crew come in and are like, you see, this is how you do it in America. And he pulls a gun on him, and then like maybe one of the sickest death scenes that you're ever gonna see.
Yep.
He suddenly just gets shot, and there's this blood coming out of one side of his head, and it's messing with his functions.
Oh, that's so great. He's pointing the gun over here. He's pointing the gun over here.
And everybody in the garage gets gunned down by Barry, who has gone from whatever beach to.
And so instead of running like Hank wanted him to do, he decides that he's going to go and save Fuchs. So that's pretty interesting thing, especially since Fuchs just sold him out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting, it makes logical sense though too, because he's saying, Hank is saying he's going to the acting school. The only thing that's precious to him at this point is the acting school, right? He doesn't he can't have that happen. So he's got to immediately go over there, and he considers it for a second. And he's got to take that threat out right now. I think Fuchs is certainly a concern, but I think it's secondary to saving the innocents, the quote innocents at the acting school. And once that's done, that's essentially done.
Yeah. Now, I think we did get something out of order here, because the airport scene happens after this. The airport scene happens after he shoots Fuchs, all the people in the garage with Fuchs. And then he does another starting now, and then he takes him to the airport.
And he gives him all the money. I thought that was kind of crazy. Didn't give him any, but like, he doesn't care about the money at all.
No.
So, and he never really has. So Fuchs just has the money, is leaving him there at the airport.
Yeah.
Right around then, also, we have the great scene where Hank comes out and is going to see whoever what they're doing in there, and he sees all the carnage. He sees all the people who've died, and after a second, he like kind of smiles and says, "Barry."
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, that's so nice, boy." And he just really appreciates the horribleness, and that's the brilliance of Barry.
Yeah.
The part that makes me laugh the most is the freaking helicopters come overhead, and he's like, "That is definitely for us." All right, come on, guys.
That's an interesting play, by the way. He does the only thing that they could do. It's at the end of the episode, but the only move that he can make is make peace with Cristobal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a risk because Cristobal could fuck all his shit up, right? But like immediately he's like, I've got to get out of here. I got to get my guys out of here. We're going to the stash house, and we're going to try to make this work.
But
for
now
Cristobal.
that Goran is dead, he can say that it was all his idea. It was not my idea. I wanted, and then they don't have to go to war.
Exactly. I think that works. I think the decision making for Barry and for Hank makes all the sense in the world. It belies a little bit more intelligence for Hank than we're led on to believe. He makes the right call for sure, and so does Barry in a sick, twisted way.
This leads to Moss and Loach going to the garage, and I love how they've covered all the bodies, and Goran's still sitting there. There's the yellow tarp over him and everything. But they're instantly those are the Bolivians that did this. And
they even said that the person either outside was either crouching or very short.
Yes, and they're like, Bolivians. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It everything breaks perfectly. Now, some of that was Barry, I guess, knowing that he wants to shoot at that height.
Yeah.
But like everything just breaks perfectly in the investigation to clear him easily.
Yeah, and I like how Loach says that we can't just go ahead and rule people out of that, and she goes, "It's the Bolivians who's making work now," and this leads to just this. You never expect comedy to come from some of these things. You have that police chief saying, "Well, here's what happened. Mm-hmm. There was the Bolivians and the Chechens, and this guy Taylor was teamed up with Ryan and they started a war between these two gangs, and it's just like Yojimbo." And the reporter goes, "Hey, could you spell Yojimbo?" and he's like, "Well, I think it's how it sounds. You use Y-O and everything." And that conversation continues all the way through where they're like, "Well, did Kurosawa, was that the only movie Kurosawa made?" It's like, "Oh no, he was highly prolific."
Can you spell Kurosawa?
Yeah.
No questions at all about the terrible murders and everything.
And jumping far ahead, there is a moment too that's great because Sally's talking to Barry at the bar, and there's the plaque of Ryan in the background. The bartender goes over crowbars it off, and you see Barry looking at it like, like, oh god.
But during that scene, Gene just happens to be watching on TV and gives her a call.
At Costco.
At a Costco. And he has those smooth lines again, and she is like, oh yes.
Yeah.
The investigation is done.
Yeah.
Now I can again try to go back.
Have they had any contact between when they kind of broke up?
No, I don't.
And now
I don't think so.
They haven't shown us any.
Not,
so she
not
made
since
a clean break.
He was dragged away after the
shootout.
Basha shooting.
Yeah.
So did you detect though on her face that she didn't believe any of this during the police chief was giving the whole story about this? Did you maybe it's just me reading into it?
No, I think there's some mixed feelings there because as we see later on, there's just a tingle that just won't go away. And I think she's established that. I think she's even referenced it that yeah. I mean, even she was leading that conversation in the garage. Like, this is what makes narrative sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
And even trying to be talked out of it. No, this is what makes narrative sense. But I don't think you're wrong. I think there's still a little tingle saying like, there is another explanation that would maybe fit this even better.
Yeah, but logically, she has it all. Everything is in place. Everyone that she works with agrees with it. And I think this really matters. She now can get back with Gene. And I think earlier in the season, she was really happy to accept the alibi from Barry because that meant she could go back and see Gene. And now she gets to do this again. She gets to actually have love in her life. Mm-hmm. So I think that is enough of a motivating factor that she chooses logic over her gut.
Mm-hmm.
She goes off. She not only is ready to go back, she's ready to like even mingle with Barry and Sally, who are officially back together now. They're reading lines on hammocks and stuff like that.
Well, right before they'd gone back to the bar, and he tells them all that they're going to leave. He's going to leave. He's going to be gone, which is probably would be
it's a good idea.
A good move for him. He could get out of all this mess. Mm-hmm. But Sally talks him back into it.
Yeah, because she realizes that when he can go to that place, he's a good actor,
but it's also benefiting her.
Yeah, it's definitely. Well, she definitely doesn't get that Gersh guy to give her a card afterwards if he doesn't come out and nail that one line.
Yeah, there's this whole dynamic, like this duality with her, where it almost harkens back to those first couple episodes where she's selfless. You know, I can help you get to that place. Like, I'm going to tell you my story and things like that. You know, I need you to, or, you know, I'm going to help you. And then, like, the next breath should be like, well, we play really well together. Like, I need you. And so it's not a selfless act.
No,
she's trying to keep him in because they work really well together. So yeah, I mean, what a complex character.
Well, you see throughout the season that she doesn't really care about any of the other characters. She's willing to take away Macbeth from what's her name.
Sure, yeah.
She's willing to just everybody else. She's willing to just talk bad about, but he is actually able to help her, so she will help him and make it look
well. She does a thing too where she pretends like she's giving like tremendous information to Barry, and then wants the world back in exchange. She says, I've been using this part of me for my acting. She goes, when I was 18, I was married and the guy was horrible to me, and that's all. And then she goes, what's going on with you? and then he's like, just not saying anything. He's like, well, I just told you I was married. Yeah. Like that was a big deal. And he goes, oh, well, yeah, that's great.
it's like the fourth person that she's told too.
Yeah,
it's not that big of a deal,
right?
But it's almost like she has this. She is, you know, showing that that's kind of her belief, and her past is kind of bullshit. And he hasn't really built that in himself. He has this past where it's terrible, and if he was going to tell her to her, it's terrible. He hasn't come up with the thing where he can explain the bad parts of his past away.
No, I'm wondering, like, I want to temper this with the bullshit thing, because she's remembering it wrong, for sure. But the abuse was still
she's remembering
so the abuse is, but she's remembering it wrong.
She's remembering the leaving wrong.
Right. But she certainly did still have a very traumatic experience.
I agree totally.
But I understand your point is that he's not able to reconcile this whatsoever with any sort of moral, stance, especially not triumphant like she is with leaving him.
Exactly. So, and then we go back. After that, he agrees to stay. He agrees to do this play, and then we...
Oh, the play. Hold on. The play. Do you think this is a subtle jab at either from Bill Hader or ironically? He says when she gives him the front page script, he's like, well, is this dramatic? And she's like, no, it's a comedy. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is talk loud and fast. Anyone can do it. Do you think that's maybe a little... It's either ironic... It's got to be something referencing Bill Hader, because like as funny as he is, he literally wanted to do a series like this to show off that it takes more of you to do drama.
It could be, but it's also those screwball comedies are very much that.
No, she's being right.
Yeah, she's absolutely correct about those screwball comedies, because that's what they are. They're fast. They're loud.
Anyone can do it.
There is an article I think that came out in the last day or two talking about how Hader and Winkler have become like really good friends, and how when he got off of SNL, they told him, "You do a Stefan movie. You got to keep doing this." He's like, "No, I wanted to get away from that." And of course, Winkler really went through the same thing. He said he didn't get like a really good acting for 7 years after Happy Days.
I could see that,
which is because he was totally typecast. And so, yeah, Bill Hader's trying to get away from some of those characters, and he's doing it with this show quite a bit.
Yeah. So we're cutting on to the resort or whatever, the cabin that
a coda basically to this episode, right?
Yeah,
to the season.
And they shoot this very much like all of those dream sequences. Because this is the stuff that he's been dreaming about. He's in the hammock, he's talking to her, they're reciting lines together. Oh, here's Gene and his girlfriend. You know?
Yeah.
And hey, we're gonna have stuff cooked out, and you know, Gene's got the comical kiss the cook apron on, and
singing her a song and doing all of that, all of the fun idyllic dream stuff. So,
but you realize it's not once the nitty gritty starts coming down, all the little facts that come out. Gene recalls the first episode, I believe, where Barry does that monologue, quote unquote, about being a hitman and he's killed people. And
this is another one of those where the editing is fantastic because it has to go looking at different faces, and you see Barry kind of, just normal, enjoying the afternoon, got a small smile on his face, and as soon as he starts talking about this monologue, it goes to like a flat expression.
And again, the acting thing. All he has to do is go along with it.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there going, yes, and you've probably been taught this. Go, yes, and yeah, I know that was an awesome one, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he just denies it. But
instead, he reacts in a way that if you were at that table and you were looking at him, you would be like, why is he reacting this way to it instead of that should have been a happy moment? He hasn't told his girlfriend. That's another thing that she's noticed. And then she has that. I have one question. Sally, you want to do a ride along?
Yeah. At what point did you both of you figure out that this wasn't a dream sequence? Because it took me a while. They do have that little thing where she finds out that his name is
that was
stage
what
name
did it
is
for
Barry
me
Block.
is when they look and she says that his name is Barry Block, and she kind of has like a small moment of reflection, like, oh, he has this other stage name, and they make a big point out of that. It's like, yeah, okay, so this is real because in his dream she would never figure that out.
Yeah, those little details. I quite honestly, even though they shot it this way, I knew that it wasn't. I don't know why. And there's just maybe just something about it because usually the dream sequences are very hyper realized, like they're
John Hamm.
Yeah. And this one is like, this is something that you can kind of see happening, especially after what just happened. And he was having a lot of those fantasies when things were not their best.
Yeah.
And so the ride up to this point was like, okay, that seems plausible, but it is shot that way. It is shot with that, like, this is a fantasy. This isn't really happening, type of thing. But yeah, once the whole Facebook thing comes out and the fact that he didn't tell that monologue thing comes out, then she's still going to be playing cop.
There's one point, going back to the scene in the editing where he makes eye contact with Janice that I think just gives it away.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I love the cut from him, and then you see her looking over at him, and it's like, okay, she knows, I think.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly.
And then she goes and she starts to sneak away in the middle of the night. So
yeah, that's exactly right. The editing on this, because the way they do it at first, I don't know, like it doesn't look like she's quite noticed. At first, it looks like, okay, this is an innocuous conversation. Then as it gets deeper and deeper into it, that's when he's looking nervously, and then he goes over and looks at her. And so as it goes deeper, she's like, okay, she looks up, and then she, as a very seasoned veteran cop, also doesn't give away anything
exactly
that she's taking in. Yeah. Oh my God. I love this character so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, she goes into that midnight I wonder about that, by the way. Why can't she just do
it
in the house?
Why can't you just sneak into the bathroom?
Or just it'd be in your bedroom and do this. Maybe it's because Gene's in there and she doesn't want to like come to these revelations with Gene in the room because maybe Gene is still involved. I don't know.
I think it's setting up the scenery because
it is.
There's and in an obvious way similar to the previous episode where it's like, oh well, they got away from the crash, yada yada, and they're back. With this, she has to be fairly certain. She has to figure this out very quickly. And Barry has to be extremely certain that she knows. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And again, yes, this has to happen for the show, but I sit there and I go like, and again, this is another acting thing, right? Why would you go through all of this trouble? If she could just be in a room and do this and just on the computer, nothing ever happens. I mean, even Gene might come over and like, what are you looking at now? You know, and all that. But maybe, I mean, and the whole sneaking out and going all the way to the dock tells Barry, who's on alert, basically, that she's going out to check that out and everything. So that's one thing. I'm like, yes, I want this scene to happen, but I don't know why this scene happens.
I agree.
And yeah, she's coming on to these revelations.
Yeah, she clicks on Facebook, sees that Barry Block is connected to Chris, who has a picture of Taylor, and then she goes and looks at the video and says,
by the way,
you knew this guy.
I watched both of these episodes twice. Did we ever even hear or a mention of Chris Licata from the police that they knew he was dead?
Oh, I think I heard something, but it was if it was passing, it was fleeting. Okay. I don't know exactly where it was, and it may have been my mind.
I mean, obviously, we don't need to have that spelled out for us, but it was kind of weird. I don't know. I guess plot wise, that we didn't know that she knew that yet. And that, Chris Licata.
Well, the only other thing is that Chris is his only friend or one of his early friends. And I think she just clicked on it the way the show is saying it. She just clicked on it and immediately clicked on that one with Taylor.
Yeah. And the Taylor is the main connection, but the way she said Chris Licata made me think that
she did say it out loud, didn't she?
Yeah. Made me think that they knew that they found his body and all that. But they'd never made a scene out of it. But yes, they see Taylor in the picture and she has officially come to 100% that Barry is involved with this. And then 150% when Barry shows up behind him.
And confesses immediately. It's a great scene though.
Barry thinks he can talk his way out of this.
He's delusional.
This is the height of delusion for him.
He almost thinks he's Fuches or something, who can talk his way out of everything. He's the cockroach like you thought, but he just does not have that skill set at all.
Not only does he not have that skill, but even if he's Fuches, she's not going to have it because she is extremely she's cop first and everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
And he keeps saying he's trying to appeal to that personal side, which he's been appealing to, where it's like, well, I have this chance for a girlfriend and the life and everything. She's lonely
just
too.
The same as you.
She's lonely too. She wants to have this relationship and very much overestimates that part of her life.
How do you think this was going to end up at that point?
Oh, I thought she was dead.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. See, that's another part where it was just like with Chris earlier, where I was like, are they going to go there? They're probably going to go there. But this is a different there than the previous there. This is cop. This is relationship that you're very close to. This affects Gene. This affects everything.
I wasn't sure until I saw the hidden gun. And you knew that something else was going to happen. Barry just wasn't going to just go to jail. But was he going to be able to run, or was he just going to have to kill her? And I saw the gun, so yeah, of course, this guy's a trained killer, and he's thought all this through already.
Yeah, the problem is when you're asking yourself, is the show going to go there? The real question is the show going to go there where Gene knows and Sally knows? Because then your whole series has changed at that point.
Yeah.
He has to move. He has to find some other acting class. But then you don't have Henry Winkler anymore, and and you don't have Sarah Goldberg anymore, and that would be a travesty for the show. So I knew that's where it was going. Once again, greatly edited. Where he gives her essentially, quote unquote, one final chance to say, let's just forget this. And then when he realizes that she isn't, we cut to Sally in bed and we see gunshots outside, hear them.
Which explains, this is great, explains why she didn't wake up. That, we know that, okay, she slept through it. It was kind of silenced. It was outside. I'm sure he had a silencer or whatever. So my first thought would be they didn't hear the gunshots. Like, no, he didn't. He took care of that because he's Barry and he knows how to do that. So yeah, I love that editing bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And of course it, anytime that you see this type of thing in a show, it leads to speculation as to whether that character actually died or not.
Right.
Because they don't show it.
They don't show it. And it is a loose plot thread that actually is going to come up in season 2 because we don't know what's happened in that whole thing.
Yeah, almost certainly she's dead.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I thought for sure she was dead, and it wasn't until later when I started thinking it's more. It may have only been in episode 1 of season 2 where we realized that Gene doesn't know if she's dead, and I started thinking, well, he's delusional. Then maybe he's not. Maybe she's not actually dead. Maybe this is. Because you don't see the body and you don't have any idea what happened. And he's done the whole starting now thing where he doesn't want to kill anymore. Is he trying to find another way out of this? Is what he did to Chris make him realize how terrible that is, and he wants to find a different way? I think he wanted to. I'm not sure if he was able to do that or not.
Yeah, it's the practical stuff that really kind of mentally blocks me from being able to believe that. As we're recording this, we have not seen the final episode of season 2. But part of me wants Janice to be alive. Part of me wants her to be dead because it's driven the plot so beautifully, that event, that it would be within Barry's kind of wheelhouse to give you that finality and say, fuck you for even thinking that this was a possibility, right?
Well, this is a show, though, that likes to do things. That just bring something out of nowhere, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get something crazy in this last one, and it involves her, and she is still alive. So, but maybe they're just messing with us, and that's fine. I'm glad they did that because it makes me think about it.
Yeah, so speculating here, and as Barrett says, we don't know as we're recording this what actually happened. By the time this comes out, we will know.
Right. Maybe.
But for me, it makes no narrative sense for her to be alive.
Right.
And because that means that he found a way to convince her or shoot her and like she was unconscious or something, and then she has to find a way to be alive after that. Like, I don't know, some sort of like other family comes into the cabin or something and sees her and
but he is just that delusional where I think he could say, no, okay, I just shot you, you're wounded but not mortally wounded, and you get out of here. I'm going to kill you. I know where you are. I can find this, and you don't want to die, and somehow, maybe by forces her to some other place. I could see his mind, which obviously is not, he thinks he could talk his way out of it. I think he has this whole idea. Okay, if that doesn't work, then I can shoot her and not kill her, but get her out of the way in some crazy method. So I think that it's possible.
I just like that it's a question.
Yeah,
because it seemed at the moment like you. I think you said I totally assumed she's dead.
Yeah,
totally assumed. But in fact, I think it took until the next season where, hold on, maybe it doesn't make sense. But anytime it's like with Fuches, you saw the saw coming at his face, but then it cuts away, and so you think, oh, he's dead, he's done for in this series, but it's not what you think. So. I just like that it's a question. That's such a perfect ending for this first season for this show to even make you think about something, months later on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's great.
And so this episode ends with him getting back into bed with Sally and saying starting, and then it goes to black now. Like on now, it cuts to black. And that's the end of season 1.
It's such a perfect. Now, there's obviously a million different things that we could have titled this show, right? But for whatever reason, and he only says this in this last episode, but it's so indelible to his journey that I think that's one of the hallmarks of the show is that phrase.
Yeah, well, as we mentioned, I think way back in episode 1, it's just that every time he thinks it's done, some other loose end comes back and sort of haunts him. And so that's what's going to go happen through season 2 as well. There's always that loose end that makes him get back in.
When I first saw this, I didn't realize there was going to be a season 2. So I thought that was the end of the Barry story. Now, I knew it's always possible or whatever, but I thought that was such a really cool ending to where you can imagine things just going okay for now on.
Oh, it would have been a great ending.
It would have been just fine. Or things not going, and it's kind of left open-ended to you. So that's how I took it, and kind of, I don't know, and it led me to a lot of thoughts of what could happen next. If he could have just been done being a hitman.
Yeah.
It could have worked.
Yeah.
Obviously it doesn't because we want season 2, but it is kind of crazy how that ended and how well it ended.
So. All right. Well, that will do it for season 1.
Yeah.
Episode 8 of Barry. That's the end of our season 1.
That's right.
All right. Where can people talk about this episode with the guys?
You can go to @NowStarting on the Twitter, and you can communicate with us directly. You can come to a music video @MusicVideoSins too. I'm always happy to talk Barry. Go to SoundCloud and search for Starting Now, a Barry podcast, or Cinemasins. Be able to find us there. You can comment, you can download, you can do whatever. We want to hear from you because we've talked a lot about the show. Want to hear your thoughts about the show. And hopefully you agree with us, at least one of us, 100%.
Yes. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. It's Chris Atkins and Barrett Scher and Mike Hester. We'll see you next time.